very rich, because you would think about every single one you made, and when you knew enough to make a decision, you'd do it on a big scale. But buying businesses on Wall Street is so easy. You can buy one at 10 o'clock and sell it at 10:05, and you can become a part owner of General Electric at 10:10. That the very ease with which that can be done causes people to do a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. But most of the fortunes have been made in relatively few securities, and ones that were held for a very long time, and ones that the buyer understood. Yep.
Mr. Buffett, you invest in companies with managers that you say you like and you trust and admire, and I'd like to know who you like and trust and admire in politics and business today.
Well, in business, I can tell you that there's nobody that I admire more than the CEO of Cap Cities, Tom Murphy. I admire Roberto Goizueta and Don Keogh, who retired recently, but they were one of the great two-manager combinations in the history of business at Coke. They took the market value from $5 billion to now $60 billion in a matter of 11 or 12 years. And Tom Murphy worked with Dan Burke, a tremendous combination. It's a business I don't know anything about, but I admire Bill Gates enormously. I know him individually, and I think he's incredible in business. And so I do believe I only believe in working with people I like. I mean, and we have a very small office. We have maybe 10 or 11 people there, but I think it's crazy to take a job or work with people that cause your stomach to churn and keep you up at night and all of that. And if you're in a job like that, think about changing it. I've said that working with people you don't like in business is really like marrying for money, which is probably a bad idea under any circumstances, but it's crazy if you're already rich, right? So I work with people I like. I mean, I tap dance every day to work, and I'm with people that I think they're terrific. I admire them. I gave a talk to some student at Harvard asked me to talk last year. He said, who should I go to work for? I said, well, go to work for whomever you admire the most. And got a call from the dean about 2 weeks later. He said, what'd you tell these kids? He said, they're all becoming self-employed.
Berkshire Hathaway is currently the most expensive stock that trades on the New York Stock Exchange. When Mr. Buffett was in Chapel Hill in October of 1994, the stock was trading for around $20,000 per share. After a best-selling book on Mr. Buffett was published, the share price pushed above $25,000 in the early part of 1995. He's often asked about his views on splitting the stock, and in the next section he gives an answer that illustrates his overall approach to investing.
Yep.
Mr. Buffett, I would love to buy a share of Berkshire Hathaway. Unfortunately, my cash flow is a little tight now. Why doesn't Berkshire
Hathaway... We've got a loan company, too.
Have you considered splitting the stock?
Yeah, I get asked that occasionally. I got a philosophy about shareholders that essentially, if you're a public company, anybody can become your partner in the business. I mean, if I was going to decide to build a motel here or start a mini steel works or something, I could invite 10 or 12 people to be my partners, and I would be sure they would be compatible with me because I'd select them, and they'd select me. And in a private business, private partnership, you should get a good relationship among the owners because they have a chance to sit down and decide who wants to be associated with whom. But in a public company, anybody can buy or sell. I mean, you can have anybody. The only qualification is money, which, as you mentioned, is sometimes a limiting factor. But at Berkshire, I want to get people as shareholders, as partners of mine, who have got the same expectations, the same time horizons, the same methods of measurement that I have. I mean, it's crazy to go into business with somebody that's got entirely different expectations than you have. So the only way I can affect that, since anybody can buy it, is by my communications and policies. I will try to follow policies, and I will try to communicate with the people who are my partners or my would-be partners, so that the right kind of people, in terms of expectations, I don't mean the right kind of people that they're necessarily people you want to have at a cocktail party or something, but the people who are going to be happy when I'm happy with results and who are going to be unhappy when I'm unhappy. The worst thing in the world, though, and we could stick a sign outside this hall tonight, and we could put rock concert on it, and we'd have one kind of crowd come in. And we could put ballet, and we'd have a somewhat different kind of crowd come in. Both crowds are fine, but it's a terrible mistake to put rock concert out there if you're going to have the ballet or vice versa. And the only way I have of sticking a sign on Berkshire as to the kind of place I'm asking people to enter is through the communications and policies. Splitting the stock is a relatively minor item in that. But essentially, I would rather have people as owners that expect to own it the rest of their lives. I mean, ideally, I don't want anybody to say about selling it next week or next month or next year. They may change their mind, and that's fine. But I really want them to go in the idea that they're going into partnership with me for the rest of their lives. And if they're buying because they think the stock is going to be split 50-1, or because they think the earnings are going to be up next quarter or something like that, they're not terrible people, but they are going to change their mind after they get into the hall, and they're going to think this is the wrong kind of place. All the seats are going to be occupied. That's the nature of the stock market. All the shares of General Motors or Berkshire Hathaway or General Electric are going to be owned by somebody. And it makes sense, in my view, to follow policies that get people that are as close to you in objectives and expectations as you can have. And by not splitting, we've eliminated some people we wouldn't like to eliminate. We've also eliminated all the kind of people that are basically interested in trading stocks actively, and that's a good group from my standpoint. The New York Stock Exchange is not wild about it because we have by far the lowest turnover relative to capitalization of any stock on the exchange. But to me, that's terrific. I mean, if I had a club or if I was preaching at a church, I would not measure my success by how frequent the turnover of the congregation was or the club membership would be. I would really like the idea nobody wanted to leave their seat, so there wasn't any seat available for someone else.
I was wondering if you could share a story with us as one of your investment non-successes or failures.
Let's call them failures, yeah, right.
Failures. Yeah. And maybe why it failed, and maybe some of the reasons that are lessons you learned from that failure that would be helpful to us.
Yeah. I make more mistakes when I have a lot of cash around. I think your decision-making, or my decision-making acuity, folds or fades with extra cash, because I just think there's more of a compulsion to do something when you're sitting around with cash than if you have to either sell something or maybe borrow money, although we're not big on borrowed money. So I would say that's been one causal factor over the years. Fortunately, most of the time I haven't had much cash around, so it's not been a major problem. But it has caused me. I'd like to think that's what caused it. Maybe it was just plain stupidity at the time. It has been. It's interesting. I made a study back when I ran a partnership of all our large investments, or larger investments.